The moment we saw men with guns and drug activity happening, we thought, maybe not. In this video, we'll share about our experience spending a weekend in a favela in Rio de Janeiro, and we will answer the following questions. 1. What is a favela? 2. Is it safe to visit a favela? 3. Why would a tourist want to visit a favela? And 4. What you need to know before you decide to visit one if you're thinking about it or planning a trip to Brazil. What comes to mind when you think of a Brazilian favela? What have you heard about them? Maybe you think about poverty, poor housing, violence, gangs. Brazil has over 12,000 favelas, housing over 16 million people. That's about 8% of the Brazilian population. If you haven't seen a favela, have you really seen Brazil? More and more tourists are visiting favelas, but that doesn't mean they're safe. And you should not go to a favela until you understand these things. First, what are favelas? They're communities with unique challenges, often referring to impoverished neighborhoods that lack government support and resources. And they don't only exist in Brazil. These kinds of communities exist all over the world, just with different names. In Colombia, they are comunas. In Mexico, they're barrios. In the US, they're the projects, the slums, the ghettos. But they are also so much more than that. The favelas were formed prior to the dense occupation of cities and the domination of real estate interests. Following the end of slavery and increased urbanization into Brazilian cities, a lot of people from the Brazilian countryside were moving to Rio. These new migrants sought work in the city, but with little to no money, they couldn't afford urban housing. Over the years, many former enslaved Africans moved in. Even before the first favela came into being, poor citizens were being pushed away from the city and forced to live in the suburbs. During the 1950s, the favelas grew to such an extent that they were perceived as a problem for the whole society. In the 80s, crime began to take hold with the rise of drug lords and their trafficking empires. Violence intensified, with the homicide rate in Rio tripling between 1980 and 1994. In 2008, the government initiated a program to weaken the control of drugs and gangs by improving the living conditions through social and public service investments. They set up a special police unit, the UPP, Unidade de Policia Pacificadora. And they haven't implemented this in all favelas, but Vidigal and Rocinha have become the most well-known products of these programs. While pacification has brought some positive changes, like reduced crime rates and increased government services, it's also been criticized for increased police violence and human rights abuse. We're foreigners here, so we have no idea what it's like to live or grow up in a favela, but we're not completely strangers to some of the things that they experience here. We grew up in parts of Chicago that are riddled with gangs, drug trafficking, and gang violence. So we definitely have a lot of empathy towards the people in these communities. And we weren't planning on this, and we're still processing the ethics around having done so. But we spent a weekend in a favela for a couple of reasons. First, our Airbnb in Centro, which is also known to be an unsafe area, was running out of availability. It was booked for Easter weekend, but we were looking at options, and housing and Airbnbs and hotels in Rio on Easter weekend were super expensive. So we started playing with the idea of maybe staying in a favela. We were planning to visit with a guide no matter what. We're like, what if we stayed in one? Well, we noticed that there are lots of Airbnb options in the favela of Vidigal.
Let us show you where we're staying. There are multiple ways of getting there, but we take this one because it's the shortest one.
These alleyways and stairs are very typical and emblematic of the favelas in Brazil, and it's because of the way that these communities are built. They're houses and buildings built with they started out with whatever materials they could find. And they're built with no real urbanization plans or no real support. So people just kind of build them on top of each other. And these tight spaces are the only ways to get up there. Cars don't fit through here. Motorcycles barely fit through here. And as you can see, people barely fit through here. This is how we go to where we're going. So as soon as you enter, lots of concrete everywhere. There are stairs to go down. I think that's where our Airbnb host lives. But our unit is up here. Follow me. It's a one-bedroom loft studio apartment. It's actually more spacious than the apartment we have over in Centro. It's clean.
It seems fairly recently remodeled, and our hosts are really, really nice. They text us often, making sure we're okay. They invited us over to their place. Really nice people.
Something I'm sure you're all wondering is it safe to be visiting the favelas? Well, here's something that you're going to hear me say a lot. This is a hard one to answer. And I'm going to focus on safety in the context of the favelas because safety in the context of visiting Brazil as a tourist in general is something we'll talk about in a separate video. The reason this is a difficult question to answer is because it's not a simple yes or no. It's more like a maybe as long as you know how to behave. And what does that mean? Well, you only really find out what that means if you go with a local guide. There are currently 2 favelas in Rio that are considered pacified and okay for tourists. Those are Vidigal and Rocinha. Of the 2, Vidigal is considered the more tourist friendly with Airbnbs and hotels. Our Airbnb host took us to the apartment. She showed us that she lived nearby. She showed us there are shops and pharmacies nearby. And because it was the middle of the day, we thought maybe we can go for a walk. We started to go for a walk, and the moment we saw men with guns and drug activity happening, we thought, maybe not. So we turned around away from the small alleyways and we went back towards the main road. And because this was our first day, we realized we should only stay where it's okay for tourists to be. And that's essentially either in your Airbnb or in the Praça do Vidigal. Praça do Vidigal is the main plaza in the favela, and that's known to be tranquila or calm. So aside from that, because we hadn't yet seen anything without a guide, we were in no business to be walking around by ourselves. So why would tourists come to favelas? There are a few reasons. One, because favelas tend to have some of the most beautiful scenic views of the Rio de Janeiro landscape, or whichever city. In most cities, the poorer communities will live in the lower parts and the wealthy will live up in the mountains. In Brazil, it's the opposite. The wealthier will live in the lower city, and poorer communities like the favelas will be up in the mountains. Another reason people visit favelas like Vidigal is for the access to the specific hiking trail for Trilha dos Irmãos, or the trail to the Two Brothers Mountains. And lastly, and I think this is the one we can identify with the most, is people are curious. Favelas are known to be the groundworks for Brazilian trends and culture. Some people might even call it the real Brazil. It's one thing to ask why tourists visit favelas, but maybe the better question is, should tourists visit favelas? And I'm asking this question knowing very well that we're already here. And while we don't really have an answer, if someone were to ask me what I thought about visiting a favela, I would hesitate. It's not an easy place to visit, and especially if you don't have a handle on the language, misunderstandings can happen very quickly. But if you are going to visit one as a tourist, here is what we think you should know before you decide to go. Number 1, and most important, do not go to a favela without a guide. We booked a full day tour to see Vidigal and Rocinha with Favela Tour Vidigal. These were 2 tour guides who took us around along with 8 other people. So we were a group of 10 people, mostly foreigners, including 2 Brazilians from Sao Paulo. So it's not just foreigners like from other countries that are intrigued with favelas. Brazilians from all over the country also come and are curious. We paid 280 reais per person. They took us to various lookout points, mirantes, miradores. They took fun pictures of us and walked us through the alleyways. And it's very important that you go with a guide because these people know where to go. They are in collaboration with the locals. They are usually locals themselves, but most importantly, they're in collaboration with the people that they need to be, if you catch what I mean by that.
They took us through the favelas via moto taxi, which was quite the experience for us, but a part of daily life and a means of commuting for the people who live here.
I will say that I do wish that the tour gave us a bit of a more history. We had to do a lot of Googling and investigating on our own to really get the history and understand the community. It felt more like a photo op, like They were a photographer, and we weren't asking them for pictures. It was just part of our tour. This is how they did it. So there were some things I liked about the tour, and then there were some things I didn't like. Even though it was not perfect, I don't think anyone should be going into these favelas without a tour guide, because they are there to not only guide you but also kind of protect you, because it's very easy to make a mistake as a tourist and take photo or video of the wrong person. That brings me to number 2. Do not take photo or video. The very few photo and video that we were able to get for this video was during the few times that our guide told us that it was okay to film. And that was either when we were going up on the motorcycle, or during the drive, or from the miradores, from the miranchis. Why is it not allowed? There's still a lot of illegal activity, even though these are pacified, meaning they're no longer at gang wars. There are still things going on that, certain people don't want to be caught on camera or video. So if you're filming disrespectfully, most people just don't want a camera pointed in their face, period. So we hope that we've been kind and respectful enough while we've been filming, not to get people too directly. And that one leads me to being respectful and mindful of locals' traditions and customs. And how do you know what they are? Well, really, the guide tells you what's okay and what's not. One example was walking in a single file line. It should be obvious, but when you're not used to the things, you might forget. We were walking with our group, and we were taking up the entire sidewalk without realizing it, and our guide reminded us, make sure you walk in a single file line. These are tight spaces. People are here living their day-to-day lives, and we should not be taking up too much of their space. And lastly, don't give papaya, meaning don't flash your valuables, don't bring expensive jewelry, don't flaunt these things that, might give a person the opportunity to take that. So you just want to be extra careful and be mindful of your surroundings at all times. We mentioned that a popular reason for visiting favelas is for the amazing views that they have of the Rio landscape. One of the popular spots to see those views is at this restaurant, Café y Mar, at the top of Vidigal, offering brunch from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Brunch all day. We have the salmon toast with amazing cappuccinos and strawberry Nutella waffles for dessert.
We're back in our Airbnb and we're reflecting on our experience here in the favela. We only spent a weekend here in Vidigal, so we can only speak to the little that we saw and did.
For starters, I think it's important to note that this, while tourist friendly, is not necessarily a tourist attraction.
Right.
Coming to a favela like Vidigal or Rocinha is not like going to see Christ the Redeemer. It's not like going to the Sugar Loaf. Right. It's definitely not, it shouldn't be viewed like that. This should be done with sensitivity if it's going to be done. You're walking into people's lives here, and that's a really sensitive thing. So while we acknowledge the kind of presence that we bring, we did our best to be respectful and really stay open-minded. But overall, we found that people were very friendly. They were actually welcoming. Granted, of course, as long as you're not like filming in their faces and treating them like, I don't know, like
you're walking into a zoo, pretty much. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want to be respectful. So we found this to be a very stimulating experience. Like if I had to describe it to you, you're walking into a beautiful chaos.
And chaos it is.
But it's like there's people everywhere. There are motorcycles zooming by. There's loud music. There are people yelling, but it's not because people are fighting. It's because people are just passionate about what they're saying. It's like a Latino thing to be yelling across the room. And on our way back to Airbnb, we came across a huge street bingo party. And by huge party, I mean like it's those narrow streets that only the motorcycles and pedestrians fit through. We're walking back and we stopped at the little local store to buy some water and some acai.
And I think like people saw a little bit of concern in our faces and they were like, it's okay. You guys can go. Can go. Where are you guys from? Chile? No, we're from Mexico. Oh, Mexico. Like, yo, go. And then...
not concerned for our safety. More so concerned that we're like, oh, we're going to interrupt this party. We're going to cross through. And they're like, no, it's fine. You can go through. It's just a little crowded, but you can go. So we went through and there were people halfway in and out the store playing bingo cards with beans, with dried corn, and we're just watching happily until they invited us to play. And I was like, all right, well, now that I've been invited, I'm gonna play. And so I told them, if I win anything, it's yours. Like, I'm not keeping anything.
I like had dinner there. I had my rice, my chicken. Jenny was having her acai, and the kids were being really lovely.
Oh,
and
they
like,
were awesome.
You know, go on, 71.
Bingo!
So to sum it all up, I'm thankful that we got to experience this, that we got to see what the sense of community was really like here, and it's lovely. The art, the music, the food, and all of this was a great reminder that when you engage with people, locals, local businesses, it is possible to experience the culture safely, even when these are places that are traditionally considered unsafe.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of Rio's favelas. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions or want to tell us what you'd like to see next, leave that in the comments also. And until next time, se cuidan, se bañan y nos vemos en la próxima. Chao.